overall thoughts on day one of training camp? I know just one practice, but what were your thoughts on how the team looked?
It's the same thought that every coach around the league had, which is the energy was great, So all 13 teams are in exactly the same place. Great first day. Yeah. There's not going to be any social media that says it didn't have a good first day, right? Everybody had a great first day. So we're no different. Obviously, we have a lot to work on.
Fantastic. How great was it to have Jessica Shepard back for this sport again?
Really good. I've always loved Jess Shepard's game. Love Jess the person. It's great to have her back in the fold for sure.
You talk about the energy of a day like today. What do you look for when it comes to these undrafted players who come in, the kind of hard work and the kind of traits that you look for to try and see on the floor?
We say players that know how to play. So you have the play that you're putting in, but do you know how to play when the defense takes something away? Do you know how to play when you get to 10 seconds to go in the shot clock? Are you going to take a bad shot? You're going to be impatient. You're going to cut corners. That's usually the greatest separator. That and pace are usually the greatest separators for young players.
Cheryl, having just all 5 starters back, and I think last year around this time you said we were going to like the product that you guys put on the floor, and that was so true. I mean, is that a step further now when most of that comes back this year?
Yeah. Our starting place is different than last year in that, again, this group formed its identity through training camp. We know our identity, so our starting place is, obviously accelerated. But now, where are the places we can go to get even better? Because we can't be exactly the same as we were last year. It's not going to work. We can make no assumptions. It was hard work to form our identity, and so we can make no assumptions about it's just going to happen. We've got to come out. We've got to understand. We've got to work for this team's identity.
On a player playing on this court for the first time, Marianne Badian, her first official W practice. Yeah. What was it like seeing her out here with
That's great. I'm sure she's 30, 31, whatever she is, kind of going, I feel like I've never played basketball before. Like, everything's so new, you're a rookie. You're a rookie, right? And so I think if you asked her, she would tell you it was obviously fun, energetic, but it's very new for her.
How much is attractive about Carly in the way she was undrafted, works her way to becoming a starter? Not just the connection with Eric and Lan and those kind of personal connections, but the way she's just conducted herself in her career and sticking with it.
Well, and that's what, we have a number of players who were cut from teams. 4 that I can think of that early in their careers had to endure, some hardships and what we're getting now and we're the beneficiary of is the perseverance and the work, and now their belief in themselves and they understand why. And so that's Carly Samuelson. Obviously it's a new team, but I told her, I don't want a lot of time with her thinking about, what we want her to be. We want her to be exactly who she is. And Courtney's already her biggest hype person, so hard to imagine, right?
Coach, I want to ask you about Cameron Taylor, who was here last year and had good showing. I think she was one of the last cuts or the last 2.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a very competitive group again, but what was it about her game and her energy that made you want to bring her back for another crack at it?
And we made the invite when we cut her last year. We said we'd like you to come back to training camp. Have a good off season. We tried to give her some things to work on. I think Cam's a couple things, like her pace that she plays at, her energy. It's very infectious in a good way. So veterans like that. They don't want a rookie who's kind of unsure of themselves and maybe doesn't play hard enough. Cam is going to compete. We're trying to marry that level of compete with skill and execution. Right? That's year 1 to year 2. That's what we're asking her to do. So day 1, obviously, she's been here. She was after her overseas season. She came to Minneapolis, did some work with the coaches. So she's excited. I think her perspective is different. She's not going to be happy with just being in training camp. She wants to compete for a job on this team, and so her focus looks a lot different than when you're a rookie and you're kind of like, hey, this is fun. Now she's like, no, I want more than what I got last year.
Identity, culture established early on at camp. What about on the defensive side? Is that something where you also feel like we can't take for granted, being that same kind of group that we were and building it the same way?
That's the number 1 thing. We were top 2 defense, depending on which metric you looked at. We turned people over at a rate that I think maybe I had one other team that was able to do that, and playing in transition was vital to our offensive success. So yeah, we will be certain that we make no assumptions on that end of the floor. And you know, I thought last year's work and commitment, it was not something we just did at parts of training camp. We carried our identity through every day in all of our work. We didn't necessarily do all the same drills and grind on them, but we really kind of got to spaces where we were not allowing slippage. We were doing things in shoot around that would hit our staples, like just real quick, you know, not necessarily too strenuous, but muscle memory of who we are. And we're going to keep that same commitment.
I'm sure you've been asked about this a lot already. I'm going to ask about it on day one of training camp, and then you'll never hear me ask about it ever again.
Yep,
or at least for the rest of the season.
Promise,
But
yeah. I don't even know what it is.
two times in league history, it seems, lost the finals in 5 games, come back and won it the next year. You were the head coach of one, assistant coach of another.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a narrative that we're talking about going into this season.
Yeah, and I understand that.
What's the key to making sure that's used as fuel as a healthy way for the team and not just a distraction?
Yeah. You know, as we opened training camp with conversations around just that, I have 2 people on staff that went through the 2016-2017, the journey of the disappointment and the heartache. You know, the joy of winning a championship is because it's so hard to get there. The level of investment, but it's also why the heartache is so great and the depths of that are so low, is because of the investment and how hard it is to get there. And so it's over. We don't agree with the outcome, but it doesn't matter. You can sit there and whine about it, or you can say we're going to use it as fuel. And what does that mean for each one? Each person is different. Some got in the gym and maybe added something to their game. Others are just, you know, eliminating distractions from their lives and kind of going, nothing's going to get in my way. So they're each going to handle it differently. For me, I know every journey is so different that I'm not even thinking about getting back to the finals. Right? We're in training camp. We're trying to figure out how to be successful in winning drills, how we play how we want to play. The other stuff takes care of itself if you're locked in on, you know, to your point, making sure that we're using it as fuel in the right way.